I'm Maggie Reagan, 38, and I built my life from the ground up, Air Force, OSI, long nights, and harder missions. For years, I did everything I could to support my mom, protect her, and make sure she never had to struggle the way she once did. But when her boyfriend looked me in the eye and accused me of being an escort because he couldn't handle the work I do, I drew a line that changed everything. Have you ever been dismissed, disrespected, or blindsided by someone you tried to show loyalty to? If you have, share your story in the comments. You're in good company. Before I dive into what happened, tell me where you're watching from. And if you've ever had to reclaim your dignity after someone crossed a boundary, tap that like button and subscribe for more real stories about standing up for yourself. What unfolded next, you won't believe. I arrive home during a rare 72-hour lull between OSI rotations. The house smells like lemon furniture polish and coffee, familiar in a way that makes my shoulders drop half an inch. My mother is waiting at the door, practically bouncing on her heels. She's excited for me to meet Derek Vaughn, her new boyfriend. Mid-40s, she'd said on the phone. Owns a small contracting business. Kind. Attentive. Good with his hands. He's standing in the living room when I walk in, holding a beer like it's a prop. He's got that loud confidence some civilian men carry, the kind that fills a room before they've said anything meaningful. Zero awareness in his eyes when he looks at me, just a quick once-over and a handshake that lingers a beat too long. So you're the soldier, he says, grinning. Air Force, I correct, keeping my tone light. Major Maggie Reagan, OSI. He waves a hand dismissively. Same thing, right? You all wear the uniform. My mother laughs nervously, touching his arm. Derek, she's explained this before. Different branches. Right. He takes a swig of his beer, still grinning. OSI though, that's like, what, investigative stuff? Sounds fancy. It is investigative work, yes. Bet you've got some stories, he says, leaning forward like we're suddenly best friends. Ever catch any spies? Or is it more like, paperwork? I smile politely. Mostly I can't talk about it. He chuckles, but there's an edge to it. Oh, the classified routine. Got it. My mother rushes to the kitchen to check on dinner, leaving us in awkward silence. Derek settles into the recliner, my mother's usual spot, and flips on a basketball game without asking. I sit on the couch with my phone, answering a few emails, trying to decompress. Later, he comments on my go bag sitting by the front door. It's a basic tactical pack, black, nothing flashy. He nudges it with his foot. Must be nice having government toys, he says. Taxpayer-funded gear. It's standard issue. Still, pretty cushy setup. He's not quite sneering, but it's close. I let it go. I'm too tired to engage, and my mother is trying so hard to make this work. Dinner is pleasant enough. She's made pot roast, my favorite, but Derek talks over her twice and interrupts me once to share an opinion about military spending he clearly formed from a podcast. When I mention a recent case involving contractor fraud, he shifts in his seat, suddenly less talkative. After dinner, I step outside to meet a black SUV with diplomatic plates. It's just a courier dropping off the sealed briefing packet routine, nothing dramatic. I'm outside for less than a minute, signing for the documents, exchanging a nod with the driver. When I step back inside, Derek is standing at the window, arms crossed. Pretty fancy car service for one agent, he says, not looking at me. Or is it not work you're doing? I stop mid-step. Excuse me. Just saying. Seems like a lot of fuss for a briefing. My mother appears in the doorway, dish towel in hand. Derek, don't be silly. I'm not being silly, Maggie. He finally turns to face me, his jaw tight. I'm just asking questions. I keep my voice even. It's a courier service. It's how classified materials are transported. Right. Classified. He says it like it's a punchline. I let it go. Again. But something shifts in the air between us, and I can feel my mother sensing it too. She fills the silence with small talk, offering dessert, suggesting we watch a movie. Derek agrees, but he's different now, quieter, watchful. Like he's cataloging everything I do. The rest of the evening is tense. I excuse myself early, claiming jet lag, and retreat to my old bedroom. It still has the same pale blue walls, the same twin bed, the same bulletin board covered in ribbons and commendations from high school ROTC. I sit on the edge of the bed and text my partner, Special Agent Layla Brooks. How's the family visit? She replies almost immediately. Complicated. Mom okay? I think so. Boyfriend's a problem. Need an extraction? I smile at my phone. Not yet. I lie awake longer than I should, staring at the ceiling, listening to the muffled sounds of the television downstairs. My mother laughs at something light, genuine. I want that for her. I want her to have companionship and comfort after years of being alone. But I also know the signs of a man who feels threatened just by my existence. I've seen it in interrogation rooms, in case files, in the subtle dynamics of power and control that people don't always recognize until it's too late. Derek Vaughn feels challenged by me. And that's not my problem to fix, but it will become my mother's problem if I don't pay attention. So I do. I catalog the small moments, the dismissive comments, the need to dominate conversation, the irritation when something doesn't go his way. I file them away the same way I'd file evidence. Because that's what this is starting to feel like. Not a family dinner. Not a meet the boyfriend weekend. A case. And I've learned over 16 years in OSI that the small warning signs are never just small. They're previews. They're the quiet hum before the alarm sounds. I close my eyes and set an internal timer for 0600 hours. I'll reassess in the morning. I'll watch more carefully. I'll make sure my mother's safe, not because I don't trust her judgment, but because I know how easy it is to excuse behavior when you're desperate for connection. Derek Vaughn might be harmless. Insecure, sure. Overcompensating, absolutely. But harmless. Or he might be the kind of man who mistakes silence for compliance. And if that's the case, he's about to learn something important. Silence doesn't mean agreement. It means I'm listening. And when I listen, I remember everything. It happens at dinner the next night. We're seated around the small dining table, my mother at one end, Derek at the other, me in between. The pot roast from yesterday has been transformed into sandwiches, and my mother has made her famous coleslaw. The conversation starts light. She asks about my work, carefully avoiding specifics she knows I can't share. I tell her about a recent training exercise in Nevada, keeping it vague but warm. She's interested, leaning in, asking follow-up questions. Derek drinks quickly. His second beer is already half empty, and we've barely touched the food. He keeps trying to steer the conversation toward my personal life. Am I seeing anyone? Why haven't I settled down? Don't I want kids? I redirect each time, gently but firmly. He keeps pushing. It's just, you're what, 38, he says, gesturing with his bottle. Clock's ticking, you know. My mother flinches. Derek, that's not appropriate. I'm just being honest. She's focused on work, I get it, but there's more to life than a badge. I don't have a badge, I say evenly. That's law enforcement. I'm military. He waves it off. Same difference. I take a bite of my sandwich and say nothing. My mother changes the subject, asking about his week, but Derek is fixated now. He's had enough beer to loosen his filter, but not enough to slur. He's in that dangerous middle zone where inhibition fades, but clarity remains. That car yesterday, he says suddenly. The SUV. I set down my sandwich. What about it? Just wondering who rides around in cars like that. Government plates, tinted windows. He leans back in his chair, studying me. Seems like a lot for one person. It's standard protocol for document transport. Right. Documents. He smirks. Or maybe it's something else. My mother's voice is quiet. Derek, please. But he's already committed. He stands up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. His face is flushed, his jaw tight. He's not drunk, he's angry. At what? I'm not entirely sure. Maybe at me for existing in a way he doesn't understand. Maybe at himself for feeling inadequate. Maybe at my mother for defending me. He slams his hand on the table. I saw you in that limo. The room goes silent. My mother gasps, her hand flying to her mouth. You're an escort. He's pointing at me now, his fingers shaking with the force of his conviction. You sell yourself. That's how you get those cars and those men in suits. I stay silent. Not out of fear. Not out of shock. But because some accusations are so absurd, so disconnected from reality, that they don't merit oxygen. Engaging would be giving them weight they don't deserve. Derek mistakes my silence for guilt. He takes a step closer, his face red, his voice rising. That's it, isn't it? All this classified bullshit is just a cover. Derek, stop. My mother is standing now, tears streaming down her face. Stop it right now. But he doesn't stop. He keeps pointing, keeps accusing, building his case out of nothing but insecurity and beer and the desperate need to make someone else smaller so he can feel big. I remain still. My hands are folded on the table. My expression is neutral. I'm not going to give him the satisfaction of a reaction. I've been trained for this, not specifically for being accused of sex work by my mother's boyfriend, but for maintaining composure under hostile interrogation. For staying calm when someone is trying to provoke me into making a mistake. He finally runs out of steam, his chest heaving, his fingers still pointing but less steady now. He looks at my mother, then back at me, then at the door. "I'm done," he says. "I'm done with this." He storms off down the hallway. A door slams. The house shakes slightly. My mother collapses into her chair, sobbing. I reach across the table and take her hand. "I'm so sorry," she whispers. "I'm so sorry. This wasn't about you," I tell her quietly. "This was never about you." She shakes her head, trying to catch her breath. He's never said anything like that before." "Are you sure?" She hesitates. And in that hesitation, I have my answer. "He gets jealous sometimes," she admits. "He doesn't like when I talk about you. About your career. He says I brag too much." I squeeze her hand. "You're allowed to be proud of your daughter." "I know. He seemed so sweet at first. So attentive." I've heard this before. From witnesses, from victims, from people trying to make sense of how someone they cared about turned into someone they didn't recognize. The truth is, people like Derek don't turn into anything. They just stop hiding. We sit in silence for a long time. The coleslaw sits untouched. The sandwiches grow stale. Somewhere down the hall, Derek is pacing, probably rehearsing justifications, rewrites, explanations for behavior that has no excuse. My mother finally looks up at me, her eyes red. "What do I do?" "Whatever you need to do," I say. "But you don't owe him forgiveness. And you don't owe him another chance to speak to you or me like that." She nods slowly, wiping her eyes with a napkin. "Men who feel small," I continue, "try to make others smaller. That's all this was. He couldn't handle not understanding my work, so he invented a story that made him feel superior. But the story isn't true. And his feelings aren't your responsibility." She squeezes my hand back, holding on like I'm the only steady thing in the room. And maybe right now I am. Because this isn't just a crack in the foundation of her relationship. It's the collapse of the entire floor. And I'll be here to help her rebuild, whatever that looks like. Rewind. Before Derek Vaughn, before the accusations, before any of this, there was just my mother and me. My childhood wasn't easy, but it was full. My father died when I was 6, heart attack, sudden, no warning. My mother was 30 years old, working as a respiratory therapist at the local hospital, suddenly alone with a first grader and a mortgage. She could have remarried quickly. People expected her to. Instead, she doubled down on us. She worked double shifts, sometimes triple. She picked up overtime during holidays. She missed sleep but never missed my school events. She showed up to every parent-teacher conference, every science fair, every track meet. When I told her I wanted to join ROTC in high school, she didn't blink. She bought me my first pair of combat boots with money she'd been saving for new living room furniture. When I got into the Air Force Academy, she cried for an hour straight, not sad tears, but proud ones. She drove me to Colorado Springs herself, helped me move into the dorms, took a photo of me in my uniform that she still keeps on her nightstand. She supported me through every deployment, every transfer, every middle-of-the-night phone call when I could finally talk. She sent care packages filled with nonsense, magazines, candy, socks with ridiculous patterns, just to remind me someone was thinking about me. She learned military time so she'd know when to expect my calls. She learned the rank structure so she'd understand my promotions. She became fluent in a language most civilians never bother to learn. She pinned on my rank when I made major at 36. Her hands were shaking, but she got the insignia perfectly straight. Afterward, she hugged me so tight I thought she'd crack a rib. "I'm so proud of you, Maggie," she whispered. "Your father would be too." For years, she joked that she didn't need to date anymore because no one can outrank Maggie. It was her way of deflecting questions about her love life, about her loneliness. I never pushed. I figured she'd tell me if she met someone. When she finally mentioned Derek, I wanted to be happy for her. She deserved companionship. She'd spent decades caring for everyone else, patients, me, extended family. She'd earned the right to be cared for. He's very structured, she'd said on the phone a few months ago. Former military family, I think. He likes things done a certain way. I should have heard the hesitation in her voice. The careful phrasing. The way she was selling me on him before I'd even met him. He's protective, she'd added. He worries about me driving at night. He doesn't like when I go out alone. Red flags I missed because I wanted her to be happy. He gets intense sometimes, but he doesn't mean it. Words I've heard in case files, in witness statements, in reports about relationships that start with care and end with control. I think about the signs now, cataloging them the way I'd catalog evidence. The way she apologizes for him reflexively. The way she downplays his reactions. The way she started asking permission. Derek prefers I don't work evening shifts anymore. The way her voice has gotten smaller over the past few months. The betrayal isn't Derek's insult to me. I've been called worse by hostile witnesses, by suspects trying to rattle me during interrogations. Words don't break me. The betrayal is realizing my mother thought this jealousy, this control, this diminishment was what she deserved. That after decades of strength, after raising me alone, after building a life from nothing, she somehow convinced herself that being small was the price of being loved. I think about the woman who drove 12 hours to watch me graduate from the academy. The woman who stood in the rain at my commissioning ceremony because she refused to miss a single moment. The woman who told me at 18, you're going to do things I never imagined. And I'm going to be there for all of it. That woman didn't shrink for anyone. But somewhere along the way, loneliness convinced her that she should. I sit in my childhood bedroom, staring at the ceiling, thinking about all the times she could have chosen herself and chose me instead. All the times she worked extra shifts to pay for my textbooks, my uniforms, my applications. All the times she smiled through exhaustion because she didn't want me to worry. And now, when she finally has the chance to choose herself again, she's chosen a man who makes her feel like she has to apologize for being proud of her daughter. That's the betrayal. Not his words, but her belief that she had to accept them. I hear her moving around downstairs, soft footsteps, running water, the clink of dishes. She's cleaning up from the disaster of a dinner, putting things back in order, trying to restore normalcy to a situation that isn't normal. I think about going downstairs to help. But I also know she needs space right now. Space to process. Space to feel whatever she's feeling without someone watching. So I stay where I am, staring at the pale blue walls, surrounded by remnants of who I used to be. And I make a quiet promise to the version of my mother who raised me, I won't let her forget who she is. I won't let her believe she's worth less than everything. And I won't let Derek Vaughn rewrite her story into something smaller than the truth. Because the truth is this, she is the strongest person I know. And if she's forgotten that, I'll remind her as many times as it takes. The house feels heavy after Derek's outburst. Not loud, just dense, like the air itself is holding its breath. I stay in my room for another hour, giving my mother space, listening to the sounds of dishes being washed, cabinets closing, the television turning on and then off again. Around 2100 hours, I go downstairs. She's sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of tea, staring at nothing. Her eyes are red but dry. She's past the crying stage, into the numb stage. I sit across from her. She doesn't look up. I'm sorry, she says quietly. Don't apologize. He shouldn't have said those things. No, he shouldn't have. She finally meets my eyes. It's never been like that before. I let the silence sit for a moment, then ask gently, are you sure? She hesitates, her fingers tightening around the mug. He gets jealous. But I thought it was, I don't know. I thought it meant he cared. Jealousy isn't care. I know. Her voice cracks. I know that. But she stops, swallowing hard. I wait. I wanted someone, she finishes. After all these years alone, I just wanted someone to come home to. You deserve that, I tell her. But not like this. She nods, but I can see the conflict in her face, the part of her that wants to believe Derek is fixable, that this was an isolated incident, that love means giving second chances even when the first chance was squandered. I've seen this pattern before. In statements from domestic cases. In interviews with people who stayed too long because they confused familiarity with safety. Has he said things like that to you? I ask carefully. Not about me. About you. She looks down at her tea. Sometimes. What kind of things? He doesn't like when I talk to other people. Men, especially. Even the neighbors. He says I'm too friendly. That people might get the wrong idea. What else? He questions where I am. If I'm late from work, he calls multiple times. He says he's just worried, but it feels she stops herself. It feels like surveillance, I finish. She nods. I reach across the table and take her hand. Mom, you know what this is? I know. Her voice is barely a whisper. I know, but I kept thinking it would get better. That once he felt more secure, he'd relax. Control doesn't relax. It escalates. She closes her eyes, a tear sliding down her cheek. I just didn't want to be alone anymore. I understand. But you're not alone. You have me. You have friends. You have a whole life that doesn't require shrinking yourself for someone else's comfort. She squeezes my hand. When did you get so wise? I learned from the best. We sit like that for a long time, the kitchen clock ticking softly, the refrigerator humming. Then Derek's footsteps echo down the hallway. He appears in the doorway, looking sheepish and defensive at the same time. Maggie, he says, looking at my mother, not me. Can we talk? Not tonight, she says, her voice firmer than I expected. I need space. I just want to explain. There's nothing to explain, I interject, my tone calm but final. You accuse me of something degrading and false. You shouted at my mother. You made assumptions based on nothing but your own insecurity. He turns to me, his jaw tight. You don't understand, I understand perfectly. You felt threatened by something you didn't comprehend, so you invented a narrative that made you feel superior. That's not, yes, it is. He looks at my mother again, his expression shifting to something that might be remorse, but feels more like damage control. Maggie, I was protecting you. Those men, those cars, I didn't know who they were. You never asked, she says quietly. You just assumed the worst. Because you never told me what she really does. I told you exactly what I do, I say. You chose not to believe it. He opens his mouth, then closes it. He looks between us, realizing he's losing ground. I think you should leave, my mother says. Tonight. His face hardens. You're kicking me out? I'm asking you to give me space. I need to think. Think about what? About throwing away what we have because your daughter. Watch yourself, I say quietly. He stops, his hands clenching into fists at his sides. Not a threat, just frustration with nowhere to go. Fine, he says. Fine. I'll go. But don't expect me to come crawling back. I don't, my mother says. He stares at her for a long moment, as if waiting for her to change her mind. When she doesn't, he turns and walks back down the hallway. We hear him moving around in the bedroom, the sound of drawers opening, a duffel bag zipper. Then the front door opens and slams shut. His truck starts in the driveway, tires crunching over gravel as he pulls away. The silence afterward is different. Lighter. My mother exhales slowly, like she's been holding her breath for months. Thank you, she whispers. You did that, I tell her. I was just here. She shakes her head. You reminded me I didn't have to accept it. We clean up the kitchen together, washing the dinner dishes we never finished, wiping down counters, restoring order. It's meditative, rhythmic. Neither of us speaks much, but the quiet feels companionable now instead of suffocating. Around 2300 hours, she heads to bed. I stay up, sitting on the porch with a cup of coffee, watching the street. My phone buzzes, a message from Special Agent in Charge Marcus Highland. Status check. You good? I reply, all clear. Personal matter resolved. Need backup? Negative. Situation handled. Copy that. I set the phone down and lean back in the chair. The night air is cool, the neighborhood quiet. Somewhere down the street, a dog barks once, then goes silent. I think about Derek driving away, convinced he's been wronged. I think about my mother sleeping more soundly than she has in months. I think about the thin line between protection and control, and how easy it is for people to confuse the two. And I think about the truth, the clean, quiet truth that needs no defense. Confidence doesn't require validation. Character reveals itself without a single word raised. And sometimes, the best response to an accusation is simply to exist fully, unapologetically, until the truth arrives and speaks for itself. which it will. Tomorrow night at 21:30 hours, the doorbell will ring. And Derek Vaughn will learn exactly who I am. But tonight, I let my mother rest. Because she's earned it. The next evening starts quietly. My mother and I spend the day together running errands, grabbing lunch at her favorite diner, avoiding any mention of Derek. She seems lighter, freer, but there's still a fragility to her I haven't seen before. Like she's testing the weight of her own decisions, making sure they'll hold. We get home around 1800 hours. She makes dinner, nothing fancy, just grilled chicken and vegetables, and we eat on the porch, watching the sunset. The conversation is easy, meandering. She tells me about a book club she joined, about her friend Linda's new grandchild, about wanting to repaint the guest room. You seem different, I observe. She looks at me, fork paused halfway to her mouth. Different how? More yourself. She smiles, but it's bittersweet. I forgot what that felt like. We're still sitting outside when my phone buzzes at 2100 hours. It's a message from Special Agent Brooks. VP needs you. Crisis briefing. ETA 30 minutes. I text back, copy. My mother notices the shift in my posture. Work. Yes. Someone's coming to pick me up. At this hour? It happens. I go inside and change into my uniform, not the casual clothes I've been wearing, but my full-service dress. Blues, ribbons, insignia. When I come back downstairs, my mother's eyes widen slightly. Is everything okay? It's fine. Just a briefing. You look so official. I smile. That's kind of the point. We sit on the couch, waiting. My mother flips through a magazine, but I can tell she's not really reading. She's nervous, not about the work call, but about the possibility of Derek showing up. He's been texting her all day, messages that oscillate between apology and accusation. She hasn't responded to any of them. At 20:25, headlights sweep across the front windows. Not one vehicle, three. Two black SUVs with government plates and a third vehicle I recognize immediately, the vice president's motorcade car. My mother stands up, confused. Maggie, what? Stay here, I say calmly. Before I can reach the door, it opens. Derek walks in, using the key my mother gave him weeks ago. He's dressed casually, holding a bouquet of grocery store flowers, his expression set in determined apology mode. He stops when he sees me in uniform. What's going on? He asks, his eyes darting between me and my mother. You need to leave, my mother says, standing behind the couch like it's a barricade. I just want to talk. I brought flowers. I want to apologize properly. She asked you to leave, I say. He ignores me, addressing my mother. Maggie, please. I made a mistake. I was drunk, I was stupid, the doorbell rings. Derek turns toward the sound, irritated. Who the hell is at the door this late? I'll get it, I say. But Derek is already moving, still holding the flowers, his face set in annoyed confusion. He reaches the door before I can stop him and pulls it open. Standing on the porch is Vice President Thomas Calder, flanked by 4 Secret Service agents. Behind them, the street is blocked off, more agents positioned at intervals, radios crackling softly. The Vice President looks directly at me over Derek's shoulder. Agent Reagan, he says, his tone calm but urgent. We have a situation. State needs you at Andrews immediately. Derek's mouth opens. No sound comes out. The flowers slip from his hand, hitting the floor in a scatter of petals and cellophane. Yes, sir, I reply, stepping forward. I'm ready. The Vice President's eyes flick to Derek, then back to me. Is this a bad time? No, sir. Just wrapping up a personal matter. One of the Secret Service agents hands me a tablet, briefing materials, classified headers across the top. I scan the first page quickly while the Vice President waits. Derek is still standing there, frozen. His face has gone pale. His knees are shaking. Then he drops. Just crumples straight down, legs giving out, hitting the floor in a graceless heap. My mother gasps, covering her mouth. One of the Secret Service agents glances down at Derek with professional detachment. Should we call medical, sir? He's fine, I say, kneeling briefly to check his pulse. Steady, strong. Just fainted. The Vice President looks vaguely amused. I've had that effect on people before. I stand, tucking the tablet under my arm. Mom, I need to go. I'll call you when I can. She nods, still staring at Derek on the floor, then at the Vice President, then at the motorcade outside. Yes. Be safe. I follow the vice president to the vehicle. As we walk down the path, I hear Derek starting to come around, groaning, my mother's voice soft and distant as she helps him sit up. One of the agents opens the car door for me. Before I get in, I glance back at the house. Derek is sitting on the floor just inside the doorway, staring at nothing, his face slack with shock. The truth didn't need shouting. It arrived in a motorcade. And sometimes, that's the only explanation necessary. When Derek fully wakes, not just the groggy half-consciousness of those first few minutes, he's on the couch. My mother has brought him water and a cold cloth. He sits up slowly, his face still pale, his hands trembling. He starts, then stops. The Vice President of the United States, my mother finishes. Yes. He looks around the room as if expecting to find evidence that he hallucinated the whole thing. But the front door is still open, the flowers still scattered on the floor, and through the window, he can see the taillights of the motorcade disappearing down the street. She's really yes. He puts his head in his hands. I called her an escort. My mother's voice is quiet but firm. Yes, you did. The rewrites begin almost immediately. It's textbook. I've seen it in interrogations, in witness statements, in people who can't accept the reality they've created. I was protecting you, Derek says, looking up at her. I didn't know who those men were. The cars, the secrecy, how was I supposed to know? You could have asked. You never told me what she really does. I told you exactly what she does. You chose not to believe it. He stands, pacing now, running his hands through his hair. This is insane. She's what, some kind of special agent? Why didn't you just say that? I did say that. Multiple times. But you didn't tell me it was, he gestures helplessly toward the door. The vice president, Maggie. The actual vice president came to pick her up. I know. And his voice cracks. I accused her of, yes. He sits back down, deflating. I didn't mean it. You said it. I was drunk. That's not an excuse. He looks at her, something desperate creeping into his expression. So what now? You're just going to, throw away what we have because I made one mistake. My mother sits in the chair across from him, her posture straight, her voice steady. Derek, you didn't make one mistake. You made dozens. What are you talking about? You questioned where I was. You didn't like when I talked to other people. You made me feel like I had to apologize for being proud of my daughter. You did. Constantly. She folds her hands in her lap. And last night, when you couldn't understand her work, you didn't ask for clarification. You invented the worst possible explanation and screamed it at her. At me. He opens his mouth to argue, then closes it. That's not protection, my mother continues. That's control. And I won't live like that anymore. So that's it? His voice hardens. You're just done. I'm asking you to leave. Permanently this time. His face flushes red. You're really going to choose her over me? I'm choosing myself. He stands abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. Fine. Fine. You want to throw this away over some misunderstanding, that's on you. It wasn't a misunderstanding. He's already moving toward the bedroom, his footsteps heavy. My mother stays seated, listening to the sounds of drawers opening, belongings being shoved into bags. He emerges 15 minutes later with 2 duffel bags and a box of miscellaneous items. He stops in the doorway, looking at her one last time. I hope you're happy. I will be. He leaves, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. My mother sits in the silence that follows, her hands still folded, her breathing even. She doesn't cry this time. She just sits there, feeling the weight lift. The calls and texts start the next day. Derek tries everything, apologies that don't acknowledge what he did wrong, explanations that shift blame, promises to change that lack any concrete action steps. My mother shows me his messages when I call from Andrews between briefings. I'm working on myself, one reads. I just need another chance. He doesn't apologize to you, I observe. Not once. I noticed. And he doesn't acknowledge the control. Just the outburst. I know. What do you want to do? She's quiet for a moment. I can hear her breathing on the other end of the line, thinking. Nothing, she finally says. I don't want to do anything. That's a valid choice. Is it? Absolutely. You don't owe him closure. You don't owe him a conversation. You don't owe him anything. She exhales slowly. Then I'm going to delete his messages, block his number, and move on. I think that's smart. Do you think I'm being too harsh? Mom, he accused me of sex work and yelled at you in your own home. You're being generous by not filing a restraining order. She laughs, a small, surprised sound. You're right. I usually am. Over the next few weeks, Derek tries different approaches. He likes her social media posts. He sends messages through mutual acquaintances. He shows up at her book club once, claiming he happened to be in the area. My mother ignores all of it. At first, it's hard for her. She second-guesses herself, wonders if she's overreacting, considers whether she should at least hear him out. But each time she wavers, she remembers the feeling of walking on eggshells. The constant vigilance. The apologizing for things that weren't her fault. And she holds firm. By the 5th week, Derek's attempts slow down. Then stop altogether. Word filters back through the small community where they both live. He's moved to a different part of town, keeps to himself, tells people they just weren't compatible. My mother doesn't correct the narrative. She doesn't need to. She's too busy rediscovering who she is without someone telling her who to be. She rearranges the living room furniture, not because it needed rearranging, but because she can. She plays music Derek hated, classic rock, loud and unapologetic. She cooks the heavy, flavorful meals he always complained about. She stays up late reading without someone asking when she's coming to bed. She talks to neighbors without worrying about being too friendly. She goes to dinner with friends without checking in. Small freedoms that feel monumental. When I visit again during a break between assignments, she meets me at the door with a brightness I haven't seen in months. The house feels different, warmer, more alive. You look good, I tell her. I feel good, she replies. Really good. We spend the weekend together, easy and unhurried. She doesn't mention Derek except once, when we're washing dishes after dinner. Thank you, she says quietly. For what? For reminding me I wasn't imagining it. That I wasn't overreacting. I dry a plate, choosing my words carefully. You made all the hard decisions. I was just there. You were there when it mattered. I set the plate down and turned to face her. You've been there for me my entire life. This was the least I could do. She hugs me, tight and long, the way she used to when I was young and scared of something I couldn't name. I'm proud of you, she whispers. I'm proud of you too. And I mean it. Because walking away from someone who makes you small is one of the hardest things a person can do. And she did it, not because I forced her to, not because I confronted him, but because she finally remembered she deserved better. That's strength. That's the legacy she gave me. And now she's reclaiming it for herself. Months later, I'm back at Andrews Air Force Base, preparing for deployment. It's early 0500 hours, and I'm in my office finalizing logistics when Special Agent in Charge Marcus Hyland knocks on the open door. Got a minute? He asks. Always, sir. He steps inside, holding a folder. Your promotion packet came back from the board. I set down my pen. And? Congratulations, Lieutenant Colonel. The words take a moment to land. I've been expecting this. The timeline was right, my evaluations were strong, but hearing it out loud still feels surreal. Thank you, sir. Pinning ceremony is scheduled for next month. You putting in for family attendance? Yes, sir. My mother will be there. He smiles. Good. She should be. From what I hear, she's the one who got you here. She is. He hands me the folder. Orders are inside. You ship to Germany in 6 weeks. Command position. I flip through the pages. Official, stamped, real. Understood. After he leaves, I sit alone in my office, staring at the promotion orders. I think about calling my mother immediately, then decide to wait. I want to tell her in person, want to see her face when she hears the news. Later that day, I drive to her house. She's in the garden, wearing old jeans and a sun hat, pulling weeds with focused determination. Hey, Mom. She looks up, shielding her eyes from the sun. Maggie, I didn't know you were coming by. I have news. She stands, brushing dirt off her knees. Good news. The best. I hand her the folder. She opens it, reads the first page, and her eyes fill with tears. Lieutenant Colonel, she whispers. Lieutenant Colonel. She hugs me, still holding the folder, laughing and crying at the same time. Your father would be so proud. So would you. I am. I always have been. We stand there in her garden, the afternoon sun warm on our shoulders, the smell of fresh earth and growing things all around us. She pulls back, wiping her eyes, studying my face. When's the ceremony? Next month. You'll pin me? Of course. I wouldn't miss it for anything. We go inside, and she makes tea while I fill her in on the details, the new command, the move to Germany, the responsibilities that come with the promotion. She listens intently, asking questions, making mental notes. You're going to do amazing things, she says. I already have. She shakes her head. No, I mean bigger things. Things that matter. This matters. She reaches across the table and squeezes my hand. I know. I want the world to see what I see. The strength, the integrity, the person you've become. They will. Eventually. We talk for hours, the conversation drifting from my career to her book club to the neighbor's new dog. It's comfortable, easy, the kind of companionship that doesn't need filling with noise. Before I leave, she walks me to the door. Derek texted me yesterday, she says casually. I stop. What did he say? That he heard I was doing well. That he hopes I'm happy. Are you going to respond? She shakes her head. There's nothing to say. Good. She smiles. You know what I realized? I spent so long trying to make someone else comfortable that I forgot what it felt like to be comfortable myself. And now that I remember, she pauses. I'm never going back. You shouldn't have to. I won't. I hug her goodbye, holding on a little longer than usual. When I pull back, she's smiling, not the careful, placating smile she wore around Derek, but the full, genuine smile I grew up with. I'll see you at the ceremony, I say. I'll be the one crying in the front row. I laugh. I'd expect nothing less. Driving back to base, I think about justice, not the loud, dramatic kind, but the quiet kind that happens when people simply choose themselves. When they stop accepting less than they deserve and start rebuilding from a place of truth. Derek Vaughn accused me of being an escort. He yelled at my mother in her own home. He tried to make us both smaller so he could feel big. And his punishment wasn't public humiliation or confrontation. It was losing access to two women who finally realized they didn't need him. That's the clean, quiet truth. You don't owe explanations to people who weaponize your silence. And the best revenge isn't dramatic or loud. It's simply living well. The pinning ceremony takes place on a clear morning in late October. The base chapel is full, colleagues, subordinates, command staff, and my mother, sitting in the front row exactly as promised. I stand at attention while the chaplain offers a brief invocation. Then Special Agent in Charge Highland reads the promotion orders, his voice formal and proud. When he finishes, my mother is invited forward. She walks slowly, carefully, holding the lieutenant colonel insignia like they're made of glass. Her hands shake slightly as she removes my major's oak leaves and replaces them with the silver oak leaves of my new rank. She steps back, salutes, civilian style, hand over heart, and whispers, I'm so proud of you. I know, I whisper back. The ceremony concludes with handshakes, congratulations photos. My mother stays close, beaming, introducing herself to anyone who approaches. She's in her element, proud, happy, free. Afterward, we go to lunch at a quiet restaurant off base. She orders wine, which she rarely does, and toasts to new beginnings. For both of us, I add. She clinks her glass against mine. For both of us. We talk about everything and nothing, my upcoming move, her garden plans, the book club's next selection. She mentions that she's been thinking about taking a trip, maybe visiting me in Germany once I'm settled. I'd like that, I tell her. I've never been to Europe. Then it's time. She smiles, swirling her wine. You know what's funny? I spent so long thinking I needed someone to travel with, someone to share things with. But now I realize I can do all of that on my own. You can. And if I meet someone along the way, great. But if I don't, that's great too. Exactly. She sets down her glass, her expression turning serious. Maggie, I want you to know something. What's that? I'm sorry it took me so long to see what was happening with Derek. I'm sorry I let him treat us that way. You have nothing to apologize for. I do though. Because you tried to warn me in your own way. And I didn't listen. I reach across the table and take her hand. You listened when it mattered. That's what counts. I just don't want you to think I'm weak. Mom, you're the strongest person I know. You raised me alone, supported every crazy dream I had, and when you finally realized you deserved better, you chose yourself. That's not weakness. That's courage. She squeezes my hand, tears slipping down her cheeks. Thank you. For what? For being exactly who you are. For showing me what strength looks like. For reminding me I didn't have to settle. You taught me all of that. Then maybe we taught each other. We finish lunch, pay the bill, and walk back to the car. The sun is high, the air crisp, the day stretching out before us with no particular agenda. What do you want to do now? I ask. She thinks for a moment, then grins. Let's go shopping. I need new luggage for Europe. I laugh. Deal. We spend the afternoon browsing stores, trying on ridiculous hats, drinking overpriced coffee, and laughing more than we have in years. My mother is radiant, not because anything external has changed, but because she's finally inhabiting her life instead of tiptoeing through it. That evening, when I drop her off at home, she lingers by the car door. I love you, Maggie. I love you too, Mom. And I'm really, really proud of you. Not just the rank. Everything. Right back at you. She waves as I drive away, standing in her driveway until I turn the corner. I watch her in the rearview mirror, a woman reclaiming her life, one small freedom at a time. And I think about Derek, wherever he is, convinced he was wronged, rewriting history to cast himself as the victim. The truth is simpler. He met a woman who'd spent her life being strong for others. He mistook her kindness for weakness. And when her daughter, the one he accused of escort work, was summoned by the Vice President of the United States, he fainted on the spot. No revenge. No confrontation. Just the quiet justice of truth revealing itself. Because confidence doesn't need defending. Character reveals itself without a single word raised. And the clean, quiet truth is this. Some men yell because they're afraid of being small. But real strength doesn't shout. It simply exists, calm, steady, undeniable. And when the Vice President knocks at 21:30 hours asking for Agent Reagan by name, that strength needs no translation. It's already fluent. 15 years later, I'm standing in my mother's driveway, watching movers carry boxes into a sleek silver sedan. She's 77 now, moving with the same determined energy she's always had, directing traffic like a retired general overseeing one final campaign. That box goes in the back seat, she calls out. Careful with that one, it's got my good china. I lean against my car, arms crossed, smiling. You know they have dishes in Arizona, right? She waves me off. Not my dishes. It's been a journey, these past 15 years. After that night with Derek, after the Vice President's motorcade and the quiet reclaiming of her life, my mother became someone I barely recognized. Not because she changed, but because she finally stopped hiding. She traveled. First to Germany to visit me during my command tour, then to Italy with her book club, then to Japan on her own because why not? She learned photography, took cooking classes, volunteered at the Veterans Hospital. She dated occasionally, a retired teacher, a widowed engineer, but never with the desperate need for companionship she'd had before. Just enjoying company on her own terms. And now she's moving to Arizona to be closer to her sister, my Aunt Carol, who's been begging her to make the move for years. You're really doing this, I say, pushing off the car to help with a particularly heavy box. I really am. She grins at me, her face more lined than it was 15 years ago, but somehow younger too. Carol and I are going to be trouble. I don't doubt it. We work in comfortable silence for a while, loading the last of her belongings. The house behind us, the one I grew up in, the one where Derek had his meltdown, has been sold to a young family with 3 kids. My mother showed them around herself last week, pointing out all the quirks and memories. It's time, she'd said afterward. I've loved this house, but I'm ready for something new. When the movers finally pull away, we sit on the front steps one last time, 2 iced teas sweating in the afternoon heat. Remember when you used to sit here waiting for me to come home from work? She asks. Every day after school. You'd have your homework spread out across these steps, working on math problems or reading assignments. And you'd quiz me on vocabulary while we ate dinner. She laughs. You were so serious about school. So determined. I learned it from you. She leans her head against my shoulder, something she's done more often lately, now that she's gotten comfortable with affection that doesn't come with conditions. I've been thinking about Derek lately, she says quietly. I stiffen slightly. Why? Not in a bad way. Just I've been thinking about how much I've changed since then. How much I've grown. She pauses. I actually feel grateful to him, in a strange way. Grateful. He showed me what I didn't want. What I wouldn't accept. And that clarity, it changed everything. She lifts her head to look at me. I never thanked you properly for that night. Mom, no, let me say this. Her voice is firm but gentle. You didn't save me, Maggie. I know that. I saved myself. But you held up a mirror and made me see what was really happening. And that mattered. I take her hand. You would have figured it out eventually. Maybe. But maybe not before it got worse. She squeezes my fingers. So thank you. For being there. For being you. Always. We sit there as the sun moves lower, casting long shadows across the lawn I used to mow, the driveway I learned to ride a bike on, the steps where I waited for her countless times. How's work? She asks, shifting to lighter topics. Still saving the world? I laugh. Something like that. I'm actually retiring next year. Her eyes widen. You are. 30 years is enough. I've done my time. What will you do? Teach, maybe. Consult. I've had offers from a few defense contractors, but I'm not sure I want to go that route. I shrug. Honestly? I might take a year and just figure it out. That sounds perfect. What about you? What's the plan in Arizona besides causing trouble with Aunt Carol? She grins mischievously. There's a veterans art therapy program I'm interested in. And Carol and I are thinking about starting a podcast. A podcast? About what? Life after 70. Dating, travel, reinvention. All the things people think you can't do once you hit a certain age. I can't help but laugh. That's amazing. We're calling it Still Here, Still Fierce. Perfect. She pulls out her phone and shows me some notes, episode ideas, potential guests, equipment they'll need. She's genuinely excited, her eyes bright with possibility. You know what I realized, she says, putting the phone away. I spent so much of my life in waiting mode. Waiting for your father to come home from work. Waiting for you to grow up. Waiting for someone to make me feel complete. And now she spreads her arms wide. I'm not waiting anymore. I'm just living. It looks good on you. It feels good too. My phone buzzes, a message from my partner of 8 years, Elena, asking when I'll be home. We met at a joint forces conference in Brussels, hit it off over bad coffee and bureaucratic complaints, and somehow built something real. She's Air Force 2, a colonel now, stationed at the Pentagon while I finish out my time at Langley. Elena wants to know about dinner, I say. Tell her to come here. I'll order pizza. One last meal in the old house. I text back and Elena responds immediately, on my way. Bringing wine. She's bringing wine, I relay. My mother stands, brushing off her jeans. Good. We'll make it a proper goodbye. We move inside, walking through empty rooms that echo with memory. The living room where I practiced my first salute. The kitchen where she taught me to cook. The hallway where Derek stood, 15 years ago, pointing and accusing before fainting at the sight of presidential authority. Do you ever wonder what happened to him? I ask. She considers this. Sometimes. I heard he remarried, moved to Florida. Apparently he's mellowed with age. Good for him, I guess. I don't wish him ill. I just don't think about him much. She runs her hand along the kitchen counter one last time. He was a chapter. Not even a long one. And I've written so many better chapters since. Elena arrives an hour later, carrying 2 bottles of wine and a bag of breadsticks. She hugs my mother warmly. They've become genuinely close over the years, bonding over their shared exasperation with military bureaucracy and their mutual love of terrible reality TV. Last night in the house, Elena says, looking around. How are you feeling? Ready, my mother replies. Excited. Maybe a little nostalgic, but mostly ready. We order pizza and eat sitting on the living room floor. No furniture left, just us and cardboard boxes and plastic cups filled with decent Merlot. We tell stories, laugh at old photos my mother pulls from her purse, make plans for visiting Arizona. You'll come for Christmas? My mother asks. Absolutely, I promise. Both of you. Elena nods. Wouldn't miss it. Good. Because Carol makes the best tamales you've ever tasted, and I'm not sharing unless you're there. The evening stretches on, easy and warm. Around 2200 hours, Elena excuses herself to take a work call, leaving my mother and me alone again. I like her, my mother says, not for the first time. She's good for you. I like her too. You're happy. Very. She smiles, satisfied. That's all I ever wanted for you. Not the rank, not the career, though I'm proud of all that. I just wanted you to be happy. I am. Are you? Happier than I ever thought possible. She takes a sip of wine. You know what's funny? When I was younger, I thought happiness was something someone else gave you. A husband, a partner, whatever. And I spent so long looking for it in other people. And now? Now I know it's something you create. It's a choice you make every day to show up for yourself, to do things that matter, to surround yourself with people who add to your life instead of taking from it. That's wisdom. That's 77 years of figuring it out the hard way. Elena returns and we finish the wine, sharing the last of the breadsticks. As midnight approaches, we finally gather our things to leave. My mother takes one last walk through the house, touching walls, looking out windows, saying goodbye to a place that held so much of her life. At the front door, she turns back one final time. Thank you, she whispers to the empty rooms. For everything. Then she locks the door, hands me the key to give to the new owners tomorrow, and walks to her car without looking back. Where are you staying tonight? Elena asks. Hotel near the airport. My flight leaves at 0900. We'll follow you, I say. Make sure you get there okay. Maggie, I'm 77, not helpless. Humor me. She rolls her eyes, but doesn't argue. We caravan to the hotel, help her check in, carry her overnight bag to her room. She orders us out after 10 minutes, claiming she needs her beauty sleep. I'll call you when I land, she promises. You better. She hugs us both long, tight hugs that feel like punctuation marks on a chapter ending. I love you both, she says. Drive safe. Love you too, Mom. Elena and I leave her there, standing in the doorway of her hotel room, waving until we round the corner. In the car, Elena reaches over and squeezes my hand. She's amazing, Elena says. She really is. Think she'll actually start that podcast? Absolutely. And it'll probably be wildly successful. Elena laughs. I believe it. We drive home in comfortable silence, the city lights blurring past. I think about my mother at 27, newly widowed, facing an uncertain future with a 6-year-old daughter. I think about her at 62, trying to find companionship and settling for control. I think about her at 77, flying to Arizona to start fresh, to build something new, to keep choosing herself every single day. And I think about myself at 38, standing in that same house, watching Derek Vaughan faint at the sight of presidential authority. The younger version of me who thought rank and uniform were the most important measures of success. Now, at 53, I know better. Success isn't the stars on your collar or the ribbons on your chest. It's the quiet accumulation of days where you showed up as yourself. It's the relationships built on truth instead of convenience. It's the moment you stop shrinking and start expanding into all the space you deserve. 6 months later, Elena and I are sitting in my mother's new Arizona living room, drinking margaritas and listening to her and Aunt Carol record their podcast. They're in Carol's converted garage, which they've transformed into a surprisingly professional studio, microphones, soundproofing, the works. So this week's topic, My Mother's Voice Comes Through the Monitor, is about reinvention. Specifically, what to do when you realize you've been living someone else's version of your life. Oh, I love this one, Carol responds. Because I think everyone hits that point, regardless of age. They talk for 40 minutes, funny, honest, occasionally profane. They discuss my mother's relationship with Derek, Carol's divorce at 68, the ways they both learned to prioritize their own needs without guilt. The thing is, my mother says near the end, I wasted so much time thinking I needed permission to be myself. Permission from partners, from society, from some imaginary rulebook about how women of a certain age should behave. And when did that change? Carol prompts. When my daughter reminded me I didn't need permission. I just needed courage. Elena glances at me, raising an eyebrow. I shrug, suddenly emotional. They wrap up the episode with their signature sign-off. Stay fierce, stay curious, and remember, the best chapter of your life might be the one you haven't written yet. When they emerge from the garage, both flushed and laughing, my mother spots my face and immediately comes over. "You okay?" "Yeah, just proud." "Of me?" "Of us. Of how far we've both come." She sits beside me, taking my hand. "You know what I was thinking about earlier? That night with Derek and the vice president." "What about it?" "I was thinking how it wasn't really about him getting his comeuppance, even though that part was satisfying." She smiles. "It was about truth revealing itself. About you not having to defend yourself because the reality spoke louder than any explanation ever could." I've thought about that a lot over the years. Me too. And I've realized that's how real power works. It doesn't need to announce itself. It just exists, undeniable and clear. Carol brings over fresh margaritas, and we toast to various things: the podcast, our health, new beginnings. The conversation flows easily, jumping from topic to topic, occasionally interrupted by Carol's husband Joe, who brings snacks and terrible jokes. "So, what's this I hear about retirement?" Carol asks me. "Next June. 30 years, done." "And then what?" "Teaching at the War College, probably. Maybe some consulting. Definitely more time with Elena." Elena grins. "I'm holding you to that." "What about you?" my mother asks Elena. "How much longer?" 5 more years. Then we're thinking about buying a place in Montana. Somewhere quiet. Montana. Carol looks delighted. "We'll come visit." "Make it a whole thing." "Please do," I say. Seriously. We spend the weekend in Arizona, hiking, slowly, at my mother and Carol's pace, eating too much Mexican food, recording a guest appearance on their podcast where I tell carefully declassified stories from my career. It's easy, joyful, the kind of time that feels both significant and ordinary. On our last night, my mother and I sit on her back patio, watching the desert sunset paint the sky in possible colors. "I'm really happy you found this," I say, gesturing at the house, the view, the life she's built. Me too. Though I'll admit, it was scary at first. Moving, starting over, being this age and still figuring things out. She sips her water. I kept thinking, shouldn't I have it all figured out by now? Does anyone? Probably not. But there's this pressure, especially for women, to have reached some state of completion by a certain age. Like we're supposed to be done growing. That sounds terrible. It is terrible. And it's a lie. She turns to look at me. I'm 77 years old, and I'm still becoming. Still learning. Still changing. And that's not something to be ashamed of, it's something to celebrate. I'll drink to that. We clink glasses, water and wine, as the sun finally slips below the horizon. "Can I tell you something?" she asks. Always. That night, 15 years ago, when the vice president showed up, that wasn't what saved me. I know. It was dramatic, yes. And Derek certainly learned something. But what actually changed things was you asking me later if that's how he spoke to me. Remember? I nod. That question, that simple question, made me confront what I'd been avoiding. Made me see the pattern instead of just the incident. Her voice gets quieter. That's what love looks like. Not the big dramatic gestures. Just someone caring enough to ask the hard questions. I don't trust myself to speak, so I just squeeze her hand. "And now look at us," she continues, her voice lighter. "You're about to retire from a career that made a difference. I'm in Arizona recording podcasts with my sister. We're both happy, both healthy, both exactly where we're supposed to be. It's pretty good, isn't it? It's better than good. It's ours." The retirement ceremony happens on a perfect June morning. Fort Myer, overlooking Arlington. The entire command turns out, plus family, friends, colleagues from 30 years of service. Elena is there in her dress blues. My mother sits front row, flanked by Carol and several of her podcast listeners who've become genuine friends. The speeches are generous, talking about my career, my integrity, my impact. I listen politely, slightly uncomfortable with the praise, ready for it to be over so we can get to the reception. Finally, it's my turn to speak. I keep it short. Thank the command, thank my colleagues, thank the Air Force for 3 decades of challenge and purpose. Then I deviate from my prepared remarks. There's someone here I need to thank specifically, I say, looking at my mother. The woman who raised me alone, who supported every crazy dream I had, who showed me what real strength looks like, not the loud kind, but the quiet kind that shows up every single day. My mother's crying now, trying to be subtle about it. Carol hands her a tissue. Mom, everything I am, everything I've accomplished, starts with you. Thank you for being my first and best example of what it means to lead with integrity. I love you. The ceremony concludes with the retirement of my colors, a final salute, and the traditional walk through the saber arch. As I emerge on the other side, officially civilian for the first time in 30 years, my mother is waiting. She hugs me fiercely, not caring who's watching. I'm so proud of you, she whispers. Right back at you. The reception is loud, crowded, exactly what these things should be. People tell stories, some I remember, some I've conveniently forgotten. Elena gives a speech that's both touching and hilarious. My former commander presents me with a shadow box containing my medals and rank insignia. Hours later, when most people have left, I find my mother on the back terrace, looking out over the cemetery. Thinking about Dad? I ask. A little. Wishing he could have seen this. He would have been proud. He would have been insufferable, she corrects, smiling. Bragging to everyone in sight. True. We stand there quietly, watching the sun set over rows of white headstones. So many stories, so many lives, so much service and sacrifice. What are you going to do with all your free time? She asks. Sleep in. Read books. Learn to cook something besides pasta. Big plans. The biggest. She links her arm through mine. You know what I hope for you? What's that? I hope you find the same thing I found, that life after the thing you thought defined you is just as rich, just as meaningful, sometimes even better. I hope so too. It will be. Trust me. And I do. Because if my mother can reinvent herself at 62, 77, and probably well beyond, then I can figure out who I am at 53, retired, with decades of possibilities still ahead. We rejoin the party, which has dwindled to close friends and family. Someone puts on music. Someone else produces a bottle of very good bourbon. We toast, we laugh, we tell the same stories we always tell because they're ours and we love them. Around 2300 hours, Elena and I finally say our goodbyes. My mother hugs us both at the car. When are you coming to Arizona again? She asks. Next month. We're thinking about that Montana property, remember? Figured we'd stop through on the way. Perfect. I'll make Carol's tamales. Now you're talking. She waves as we drive away, standing in the parking lot until we're out of sight. In the passenger seat, I lean back and close my eyes. How do you feel? Elena asks. Light. Good light. The best light. She reaches over and squeezes my knee. I'm proud of you too, you know. I know. What you said about your mom, that was perfect. I meant every word. We drive through the Virginia night, heading home to our apartment in Arlington, to the life we've built together, to whatever comes next. And I think about circles closing and new ones beginning. About the young major who met her mother's terrible boyfriend 15 years ago. About the woman who raised me to believe I could do anything. About both of us learning, in our own time, that the strongest thing you can do is choose yourself. No drama. No theatrics. Just the quiet accumulation of better choices. Derek Vaughn fainted when the vice president showed up, and the story became legend in certain circles. But the real story, the one that matters, is what happened after. My mother rebuilt. I kept serving. We both learned that you don't need permission to take up space, to speak truth, to exist fully in your own life. And 15 years later, we're both still here. Still fierce. Still figuring it out. Still choosing ourselves every single day. That's the victory. Not the dramatic confrontation or the public vindication. Just two women, separated by decades, but connected by love, refusing to be small for anyone's comfort. That's the legacy. And it's better than any rank, any medal, any recognition could ever be. Thanks for sticking with me through this. What happened that night didn't just expose a lie, it reminded me how easily someone insecure can twist your truth. Have you ever had someone project their fears onto you? Or accuse you of something because they couldn't handle who you really are? Let me know in the comments. I read everyone. If you've ever had to cut someone out to protect your peace, hit like, subscribe, and share this with someone who needs the reminder. And tell me, would you have handled Derek the same way? Have you ever seen someone crumble when the truth finally showed up?